Suzuki took their most modern motorcycle platform and paired it with a 21-year-old motor. And today we're going to see if that package actually works. Hey guys, I'm Alan. You're watching the Fireman Rides. So what we have, this is a Suzuki GSX-S1000GX Plus. That's a big name, and I'm not going to say that name many times today. So what Suzuki did is they took the K5 motor, which is the motor from a 2005 GSX-R-1000, and paired it to their most advanced chassis platform with semi-electronic suspension, all these really cool 6-axis IMU, all these really cool functions, and paired it with an old motor. And what we're going to find out today is, does that package actually work? So I got to thank the Team Charlotte Motorsports crew for giving me the keys to this motorcycle, telling me to take it out, telling me to take it for a ride, not telling me what to say, not telling me how long to keep it, not telling me anything. Just, hey, go give us a good, honest review. So I really highly recommend, if you're in the market for a motorcycle, or specifically this motorcycle right here, go see Team Charlotte Motorsports on Freedom Drive in Charlotte, North Carolina. They'll ship bikes anywhere in the country. They do flying rides. We got Charlotte Douglas International Airport right down the street. Go see those guys. So what we're going to do, how we're going to review this motorcycle today, is we're not going to do a traditional review and, hey, this is our powertrain, this is our suspension. We're going to answer the question is, does a 21-year-old motor in a modern chassis work, by asking 10 questions. I really like doing it like this because it kind of allows me to be a little subjective, little objective, but really, hopefully by the end of this video, you've got a really good idea as to, one, what this motorcycle is, but two, who this motorcycle for, and three, does this package work? And then really, is a sport tour even relevant in today's market? So let's not stop talking about it. If you see anything that you like, comment, subscribe. Let's throw on our gloves. Let's go for a ride.
All right, so question number one is, does this engine feel old? Does it feel like a 21-year-old motor? So let's give you some background on what this engine is. This is what Suzuki calls the K5 power plant of the GSX-R-1000. So, GSX-R-1000 is their, leader sports bike, and they've been building it since the 90s. This motor is derived from the 2005 model, hence K1005. So like I said, is it the exact same motor? No, absolutely not. But it's the same basic architecture. Now, Suzuki doesn't have the same kind of resources that a Honda or a Yamaha does, so they kind of have to stretch their R&D dollars a little further than either one of those two companies right there. And that's kind of where we get to this point. It was a lot cheaper for them. They found that they could get that motor to pass current, Euro 5 plus restrictions, emissions restrictions, and still give pretty good performance. So that's what they ended up doing, was taking that motor and basically just kind of massaging it, giving it some updated internals to get it to meet those new emissions, which allowed them to put it in this bike here. Now, the engine itself is no slouch. I mean, we're making 150 horsepower at the crank, high 70s as far as the torque. So this is a thoroughly modern feeling engine. The fueling, for the most part, is really good. Cruising right now, I'm in 5th gear, going 45 miles an hour, and the fueling is spot on. The only place I really had an issue with the fueling was right off of idle. A lot of motorcycles, you can take it and you can just kind of let the clutch out, and it kind of gives you a little bit. You can take off from there. I've stalled this thing probably 6 or 7 times, just trying to let the clutch out, and just to see if it will give me some throttle. Now, this is an early morning. It's a cold early morning. It's 45 degrees. That's not too cold. As far as the gear I'm wearing today, I have on my trusty banana yellow Aero Stitch suit. I have on a set of, what is it, Rivet boots, kind of Rivet casual boots. My Rivet Sand 3 gloves, which I absolutely love, which I wear year round. And the most important piece of that is my Alpine Stars Tech Air 5. Here, let's try it here. Oh, okay, so I gave it a little bit of throttle, but it did want to crap out on me. But the biggest piece of gear I'm wearing is my Alpine Stars Tech Air 5 Plasma inflatable vest underneath my Aerostitch suit. Now, what I did is I took out the shoulder armor, I took out the back armor, I left the forearm armor in since the Alpine Stars does not cover that. And now, I mean, I have a full, I got the regular protection in on my knees from the Aerostitch, and so I have a full suit of protection head to toe, and I feel perfectly comfortable that if God forbid I go down, I'll be in good shape. So, like I said, the K5 motor, 150 horsepower, high 70s on the torque. It's a traditional. When you think of a Japanese leader, a Japanese four-cylinder, not a 600 class, but like a leader class bike motor, this is exactly what you're thinking of. A nice and smooth power plant. It has good download torque. It's got really good high-end torque. The motor just pulls like an absolute freight train at lower RPMs. But then as soon as you give it some throttle, I mean, let's do some speed testing. There's 100 right there, so she'll do 100 pretty easy. And that wasn't even really trying that hard. So, will it move? Absolutely. So the power plant is, yes, it's an older mill, but I don't think that really matters. I think Suzuki did such a good job with this power plant that it fits incredibly seamlessly into this package here. So the question is does the engine feel old? And the answer is no. You get tons of power down low, up high. They've modified it to a ride-by-wire setup. It's got a little bit of buzziness at the between 4,000 and 5,000 RPM, which is pretty traditional for a big four-cylinder motor. But I'm gonna say that's more. It's more about character than it is refinement. Is the motor refined? Yes, but does it also have a little bit of character and almost reminds you that you're riding something with a little bit of heritage? Also, yes. So, to answer question number one, does the engine feel old? I'm going to say no, it does not. All right, so question number two. Does this power plant, does this K5 999cc inline-four cylinder that goes all the way back to 2005, does it deliver power in a modern way? So, to context that question is, if you look in the category today of the different power plants that are available, not just in this category, but all over the price range. I mean, you look at, BMW's got their boxer engines. Triumph has their triples. Yamaha has their triples. There's all these different types of power plants. In the world of cross-plane twins and cross-plane four-cylinders. Can an old-fashioned big old inline four-cylinder, can it deliver power in a modern way? And the short answer is yes. So, your throttle is very predictable. The power delivery is very predictable. You've got tons of low-end passing power. I mean, okay, I'm going 80 miles an hour, 6 gear. Let's give it some throttle. Well, it's just right there. Bam, there's 90. So, as far as passing power on the interstate or something like that, you've got absolutely tons of power. Does it make the most at V4? I mean, I completely forgot about the V4 engines. I mean, go look at what Ducati's doing with the V4 engines. I mean, they are on the bleeding edge of technology when it comes to their engine designs. But the question is, do you really need to be? Can you get the same? Can you achieve the same? Let's check our passing power. you achieve the same things with a traditional 4-cylinder layout? And I think the answer is yes. It doesn't need to be complicated. Don't overthink it. This engine right here, like I said, this design, and that guy is smoking a ton of weed. That smells so bad. You know, are there more advanced and kind of high-tech power plants? Yes, but Suzuki didn't need to reinvent the wheel to come out with a really good motor. They said, you know what, we have this tried and true power plant. It puts out good power. It passes current emissions. Why would we go out and spend, you know, half of our R&D budget on a new motor when we already have one that fits the bill? So does it feel like it puts down power in a modern way? Absolutely. And just because these newer motors are modern doesn't make them any better. I mean, they all still have issues. I mean, I've ridden Ducatis and they have fueling issues. I've ridden Triumphs and they have fueling issues. They have heat issues. You know, so there's no perfect power plant. So I really think that Suzuki, they did a smart thing here, and they took this power plant that has been around forever and has been refined to the absolute hilt and said, you know what? This is good enough. And it is. Is it the top of the line? No. But is it good enough? Yes. And does it make this bike compete in this category? The answer is yes. Now that leads us right into question 3, is can all these modern electronics on this bike, can it help elevate an old motor to make this whole platform legit in 2026? And again, short answer is yes. So again, we talked about, you know, Suzuki not really spending all of their budget in designing and developing a new power plant. Well, what that did is that allowed them to spend more money on the other stuff, on the electronics, on the, you know, electronically adjustable suspension. I mean, this is some pretty cool stuff. And it allowed Suzuki to really kind of put some more money into these other areas of the bike. You know, having the Brembo brakes, having the you know, the Shoei adjustable suspension. Let's get on it. Having wheelie control. And this bike wants a wheelie. I can definitely feel it holding me back right now. So yes, it definitely allowed them to spend money in other places. So, you know, the electronics, you know, the traction control, the 6-axis IMU, the wheelie control, you know, the electronically adjustable suspension, the automatic preload adjusting on the rear, the automatic dampening of the front. I mean, all this is really high-tech stuff that just a couple years ago was only really found on the most absolute high-end motorcycles. And now it's trickled down to, you know, what really, in all intents and purposes, is just a, you know, run-of-the-mill, you know, quote-unquote, sports tour. So the answer to number 3, yes, the electronics absolutely elevate this bike to a top-tier platform. All right, so question number 4. Does the combination of the high-tech chassis and electronic suspension and all these cool rider aids, does it make this motorcycle feel like a cutting edge piece of technology, or just some rehashed bike that's trying to steal some sales from other manufacturers? And that's one you got to think about. So again, let's recap. We have, you know, a very high-tech chassis, twin spar aluminum frame, Gixxer swing arm. We have the Showa semi-adjustable suspension. We have all these different rider aids. We have the adjustable preload. You have all this technology that's baked into this bike. And the question is that does this feel like some sort of rehash thing, or does this feel like a cutting edge motorcycle for 2026? And I think the answer is yes. I think it is. I think this is a very high-tech motorcycle. Does the engine come from when George W. Bush was president? Yeah, it does. But does it work in this package? Yeah, it also does that too. The combination of the you know, the semi-actives, you know, all the different acronyms. I mean, again, there's like 15 different acronyms that Suzuki uses. They love their damn acronyms, and I'm not going to go into all those again. But yes, I think this bike feels like a cutting-edge piece of technology that I would be proud to put this up against anything from Ducati or BMW or you know, Triumph or any of the Japanese manufacturers, against anything that Kawasaki or Honda or Yamaha would put out. I would put this, honestly, I would put this at the top of the sports touring category. This is an incredible all-around package, and again, I have a couple gripes with it, but it's nothing big. Again, it's an incredible package. Look at this. I mean, it's just as happy doing 40 miles an hour on a back road like this as it is doing a triple digits going down the interstate. It's a very flexible package. It's comfortable all day long. Here, let's activate cruise control. Look at this right here. So 41 miles an hour. This road right here is notorious for cops catching speeders. Actually, I got a ticket on this road back 15 years ago. So set the cruise control, 41 miles an hour. I can just putt right along. Oh, look, smart quick shifter. I put it into 6th gear. I'm at turning under 3,000 RPM. The fueling is absolutely spot on. There's a guy riding my ass. But I can just, the technology is just absolutely spot on, and the integration is is top notch. How they integrated all that technology into this package, and yes, this feels like a cutting edge motorcycle. So the answer to question number 4 is, does all that stuff make this feel cutting edge? The answer is 100%, unequivocally, yes. So question number 5, does the chassis feel modern and refined? So we got a good little curvy road here, and let's talk about this. So again, this is an aluminum twin spar frame. It's got the swing arm from a GSX-R 1000. It's got the electronically dampened suspension. This is a really, really high-tech motorcycle. And again, if it wasn't a cold morning, I would really kind of put this bike through its paces. But with the the automatic dampening control, the automatic preload control, all the traction control, this bike feels extremely planted, and this suspension, while not the lightest bike in the world. Again, if you want a light flicky bike, go get you a sport bike. But for a sports tour, this bike, it moves very well across the pavement. It's very refined. It's very planted. Is it a little slow to turn in? Yes. Does it take a minute for the suspension to kind of catch the automatic dampening control? Does it take it a minute to kind of catch up with what you're trying to do? Also, yes. And the brakes, they don't have that nice hard initial bite that somebody like me is looking for. Now, could you change, again, you got Brembos, you got really good hardware. Could you change that with a set of pads with a little bit more aggressive, maybe like a double H centered pad to put on those Brembos? I think you definitely could, and I think it would really give it that initial bite that I would personally be looking for. So speaking of the brakes, let's try it out. Actually, let's get on this little side road, then we'll try it out. So we'll do a 0 to 60 back to 0 test. How about that? Again, not a lot of traffic going on a Sunday morning. But the question is, does the suspension feel modern? And I think the answer is absolutely. It's a really nice planted, and you can see it's February, whereas it's March now, so that we'll definitely be going back up to the mountains very soon. But it's still a little too cold to be riding up in the mountains on a consistent basis. To travel the 2 or 3 hours to get there to be able to ride on a consistent basis. So we're going to have to stick with these local roads here around Charlotte. 0 to 60 to 0, go. That's pretty good. Did you see that LF flashing? That's that was the lift control, basically. So it's wheelie control. So it's keeping the front end planted. So you can turn that off if you want to have more control over that. But that right there, that was a perfect example of the safety. Call it nannies if you want to, but that whole safety suite, the SEES, the SRAD, all those cool acronyms and all those cool systems that Suzuki has put into this bike. It really makes it an all-around package and something that you don't even have to think about. Even just that right there, even doing a 0 to 60 pull on a road, that thing was monitoring me left and right and keeping that front wheel planted on the ground. That's pretty damn awesome, guys. That really is. How cool was that? Let's see if this road's any better than it was the other day. So yes, to answer that question, that's question number 5. To answer that question, does this feel like a modern chassis? I think absolutely. The twin spar aluminum frame, the GSX-R rear swing arm, all the electronics that have gone into this, the electronic suspension. Does this feel like a modern chassis and suspension? Answer is hell yes, it does. All right, so question number 6. Does this GSX-S1000GX Plus, does it tour like a modern motorcycle? So for me, for a motorcycle to be a touring motorcycle, and again, am I a big, well, there's a neutral, am I a big tourer? No. Have I done plenty of touring, and do I have enough expertise to give a good opinion of this? Yes. So I'll give you a little bit of background to me if you don't know about me. So I got really heavy into iron butt rides, and if you don't know what an iron butt ride is, those are like endurance rides of, at least 24 hours. Saddle sore, 1,000 miles in 24 hours. Butt burner, 1,500 miles in 36 hours. Butt burner gold, 1,500 miles in 24 hours. That's a tough one. I did that one. And the ultimate one that I did was the coast to coast to coast in under 100 hours. So that's right. So I went from Jacksonville, Florida to San Diego, California, back to Jacksonville, Florida in 98 hours and 10 minutes. So I kind of feel like I am qualified enough to give an opinion of what makes a touring motorcycle. So again, this is a sport touring bike, right? Here, we got a green light here. Let's test out a little bit of brake action, a little bit of quick shifter, lean into the turns, get on it. Yep, it'll do it. Yep. It's got the chops, that's for damn sure. It's got the chops. So, does all the stuff that this bike have, does it tour like a modern motorcycle? Well, yes, the answer is yes. So it has all the required things to be a modern touring motorcycle. You have the up and down quick shifter. Now this has what they call a smart quick shifter. And what that means is that you can set the cruise control, and we'll get to the cruise control. I've got a gripe with that. I love cruise control, but I got a gripe with that. You can set the cruise control and still use the quick shifter at the same time. So say we were, say we're riding in 5th gear. Okay, let's do this. Let's set the cruise control. Now, notice the cruise control button's down over here, which doesn't make any sense. It needs to be over here. So we'll set the cruise control at 69 miles an hour. Smart quick shift, what I can do is, okay, I'm in 5th gear. I need to shift up to 6. Instead of disengaging cruise control and having to go up to 6th gear and then resetting cruise control, smart cruise control, watch this. Bam, I pop it right up into 6th gear, cruise control stays set, nothing changes. That may not seem like a big deal to somebody who doesn't know anything about motorcycles, but that's some really good technology right there. Because before you would have to disengage cruise control, shift up a gear, re-engage cruise control. It seemed it was kind of fiddly, and Suzuki, with their smart cruise control, has kind of eliminated a couple steps in that. Is it huge? No. Is it groundbreaking? No. But is it something that's kind of cool? Yeah, 100% it is. So again, our windscreen is in the low position, not because I want it in the low position, but because I could not take the damn time to put it in the high position. That's my other little gripe with this bike, is how fiddly the damn windscreen is to get up and down. Again, my IBEX 450, I've got a dial. I can, 2 seconds, I can adjust it up and down all the way through the range right there. It even has a little bar for a GPS. This here, a modern, almost pushing $20,000 sport touring motorcycle, it's got all this technology. You've got rubber grommets, and I mean like thick ass rubber grommets in the windshield that you have to like kind of pry out, and you have to move these up and move the little circs up and everything else. It's a pain in the ass. I gave up on it. I put a little video right here and show you how difficult it was. I said, screw it. I'm not even gonna. I don't want to mess up. Team Charlotte Motorsports motorcycle. So I said, screw it. So I put it back, left it in the low position. I said, I'll deal with it. So looking at the stability, again, I'm going 70 miles an hour. It's a beautiful Sunday morning. Actually, it's March 1st of 2026. So 70 miles an hour, this thing is incredibly stable. Again, I've got, the vehicles all around me, and look at this. This thing is incredibly stable. Now, I do notice one thing I forgot about. So I have the preload adjuster set to a two-person setup. So let's change that. There's one person with luggage, there's a single rider, and there is automatic. So right now, it will automatically adjust that rear preload to the weight of the bike, which is pretty awesome. There's our adaptive dampeners, and it's set for medium right now, which I really like that. The firm is definitely firm. If I was, say, doing Caesar's head or tail of the dragon, something like that, I'm going to set my dampeners to firm. And if I'm riding over a really pothole-riddled road, I'm probably going to set it to soft. But as far as for everyday riding, I'm going to set it there. Our traction control, again, it goes from level 1 to all the way to level 7, from very intrusive to hardly anything at all, and I like it at set at 4. And there's our mode selector right there, our Suzuki Dynamic Road Selector. You have A, B, and C. A is pretty snatchy, C is very soft, but B is kind of that. It's that Goldilocks. It's kind of that sweet spot. So typically I'll leave it at B like that. So getting back to the touring part. So again, can this bike tour? So again, what are the things that you need to have a touring motorcycle? You need to have good wind protection. I think this has it. I'm not adjusting the damn thing. You need to have cruise control. Bam, we got it right here. I don't like the position of the button, but we got cruise control. You need to have a big tank. So this bike has a 5-gallon tank, which is pretty standard in this day and age for a bike. Is it the biggest tank? Is it a 6 or 6.5 gallon tank, or even an 8-gallon tank that a BMW GS Adventure has? No, but it's also not a 3 or 4 gallon tank that you would get on a something else. I'm not even giving any examples. So a 5-gallon tank, and you're getting about 45, maybe 50 miles per gallon if you kind of squeak it out. And really for me, that's kind of that gives you about 180 to 200 mile range. For me, just like an adventure bike, that's kind of like the minimum of what I would consider as acceptable for a sports touring bike. You don't want something with 150 mile range that it feels like you're having to stop literally all the time to get fuel, and you don't want to have to keep staring at your fuel gauge and having range anxiety when you're crossing the desert on I-10 in New Mexico. So 200 miles, that's kind of the sweet spot. Anything lower than that's not enough. Anything higher than that, you're going to stop before that anyway. So the answer to question number 6 is does this bike tour like a modern bike? And I think the answer is absolutely yes.
All right, so question number 7, and we're in my office here in South Charlotte. Is it comfortable enough to live with every day? So I figured what we do is we take the opportunity, put it up on the center stand so we can really hop on it and we can look at the ergonomics and how you fit on this motorcycle. So for reference, I'm 5'10", have a 32 inch inseam, about 225, 230 pounds, depends on the day. Depends on if I have, what I ate the night before. But so that kind of gives you a reference as to what I am. So let's hop on the bike here. All right, now again, we're on the center stand, so I can't really do the ground comparison. We'll take it off the center stand before we're done here, and we'll kind of compare that. But to show you how I fit on this bike, this gives you a good idea as to how my hip angle is. Now, compared to something like a Yamaha FJR-1300, which is a true touring bike, not a sport touring. You sit a lot lower, or Gold Wing, something like that. But this is a sports tour. So a sports tour is going to have characteristics of both bikes. So in my opinion, the sporty comes from your leg position. Again, your feet are not tucked up. They're not tucked up. They're not tucked back, but they are definitely in a sporty position. Your pegs are directly underneath of you, and they're up a little high. Now, what that does is that gives you a little bit more ground clearance. So if you're taking tight turns, you're not going to be scraping pegs nearly as often. But that does tighten up your legs and give you a more sporty feel with your lower body. Combine that with the narrow tank right here in the center, and you really got a good place to grab a hold of right there. So your lower body feels like like it's sitting on a sports bike. Now, the touring part of the sports touring comes from the waist up. So we have a nice wide handlebar right here. It's not in a full 90 degrees. So 90 degrees is I'd be sitting like right here, sitting completely upright. This has a little bit of a lean. So I'd say about a 85 or 80 degree lean like this. So the combination of the sporty legs with the upright position, it's definitely, it's something a little bit different. Again, you're used to, if your legs are up tight, you're gonna be over like this. Or if you're sitting upright like this, your legs are gonna be further down like this. So this is definitely kind of combining the two together. That's what makes a sports tour a sports tour. You get the sporty position here, you get the touring position here. I personally really like this position right here. Again, like I said, would this be all day comfortable? I don't know. I don't know. I think the seat actually might be the biggest limiting factor on this bike for long distance touring. It definitely has a little bit of a kind of a forward slope to it, and my under regions tend to feel like they're kind of rolling forward a little bit. Now, I do know Suzuki makes an aftermarket seat, their comfort seat or touring seat, whatever they call it, and from everything I've read, it is miles and miles better than what this seat is here. So I would recommend, talk to, when you're buying this bike at Team Charlotte Motorsports or wherever you're buying it from, talk to the guys, try to have them throw that into the deal, or go ahead and buy it, before you make the purchase, and that way you have the absolute best seat on this bike. Now, I'm sure there's some other aftermarket options as well, but I personally like to stick with the OEM brands. So again, as far as the position goes, my legs are up a little bit higher. My knees, my hip is a little bit tighter. The stock seat, my butt is hanging off the seat a little bit, so it's definitely a narrow seat, which helps with getting your feet to the ground. 33.3 inch ground clearance. That's pretty high. That's almost like adventure bike territory. But the narrow seat makes it a lot easier to get down. And then with that, like I said, I'm in just a slight bend with my upper body. Everything is nice and comfortable. This would be comfortable for 2, 3, maybe even 4 hours. Anything past that, who knows? But like I said, in a position like this, the bars are a good reach. Everything is a great view. The stock windscreen, that's one of my few gripes with this bike. The position of the windscreen as it comes from the factory is either too high or too low. And what I mean by that is that it's too low to completely allow the air to go across my head, but at the same time, it's too high to put it just on my chest. It's putting the air kind of right in the middle of my windscreen, which is not ideal. So it is adjustable, so we are going to play with that. The downside, the gripe comes in the fact that in 2026, you're still getting a motorcycle that you got to have a tool with you, and you got to take 4 bolts out, and you got to move positions, and you got to put them back in with the little rubber grommets, this and that. I've got a CF Moto Ibex 450 at my house, $6,000 motorcycle. It's got a little wheel on the side that I can adjust the windscreen on the fly really easy. So for the price point, you think that's something that Suzuki could address. But again, it's a minor complaint, but it is a complaint. So with the windscreen, there it is. It comes and hits me. That air comes across and kind of hits me right mid visor on my helmet. So if it was a little bit higher, another inch higher, that air would go right over top, and it would give me a nice clean pocket of air. The windscreen is not very wide, so the air does come through and does come around and kind of does hit me on the chest a little bit. Again, a better windscreen, and who knows, it would turn into a really good touring bike. So you got the sporty seating position, you got the touring handlebars, so it's the definition of a sport tour. So is this all day comfortable? Maybe. Can you live with it every day? The answer number 7, the answer is absolutely. All right, so before we get back on the road, let's talk about some of the design cues of this motorcycle. So again, a sports tour is supposed to kind of bridge that gap between your traditional kind of, not necessarily ugly touring bike, but then also to be sort of a styling piece. So let's take a look at this. Let's start in the front. So again, Suzuki went with that really kind of angular single headlight where everything kind of focuses and flows down to this little single projector beam there. Again, there's our windscreen. That windscreen. I tried adjusting that, and those little rubber grommets were so difficult to take out, I just gave up on it. So is it adjustable? Will it go up a bunch? Yes. Is it easy to do? No. Once you do it, you probably won't want to touch it for a while. There's our Showa semi-adjustable forks in the front. There's our Brembo monoblock calipers with 4 pistons in the front. There's our header. I went through a little bit of mud. There's our header right there in the front. We have beautiful kind of bronze colored header coming out of our K5 motor. There's our 17-inch wheels. You know, I really like how they left the frame exposed right here. That's kind of a really nice touch. There's our twin spar aluminum frame. That's really kind of the backbone of this motor here, of this whole bike. I do like that the passenger pegs are bolt-on, and the reason being is Triumph years ago, they used to, and a lot of manufacturers still do, is they welded their passenger pegs onto the frame. Now, say for example, say you didn't have these bags on right here and you drop this bike. Which piece sticks off further than anything else? That's gonna be your passenger pegs. And if you have a welded on passenger peg onto the frame and you bent this right here, you just bent the frame and you just totaled your motorcycle. So having bolt-on passenger pegs, especially if you're not going to use them, it's really nice to have. However, if you're going to use the Suzuki bags, you have to have the passenger peg because the part of the assembly right there ties into the bag assembly where it attaches right there. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you're going for sleek, say you're going to take it to a track day, you probably want to pull these off as well as the bags and to kind of lose a couple pounds, but also to kind of really kind of clean up that rear end right there. Again, so going around, there's our bags right there. Let's take a look at the bags. Bags are super easy to get into. One turn right there, flip that handle up, and you pull it down. It's a good size. It's a good size bag. Will it hold a helmet? Probably won't hold my Shoei GT Air helmet, no, but it's got pretty good space in it. And Suzuki also has, and as far as the latch system goes, it's pretty easy as well. Latches like that, locks back like that, that's it. And the bags are really nice looking. It looks like they're symmetrical. Usually a lot of bags, you know, especially if you have a high mount exhaust, you'll have one bag that kind of has a big cutout right here and you lose a lot of your space in your luggage. But with this one, with the exhaust being a really small unit right here, you don't have that issue, so you don't lose any of your bag capacity for a big high mount muffler. So it's just one of those little touches that you can see. So over here on this side, again, you can see our rear shock that is electronic and adjustable. There's our rear master cylinder here. Again, you can see how the passenger pegs tie in, are used as a part of the assembly on the luggage here. Again, a real simple exhaust. You know, you got a big bread basket down there at the bottom, but that's no big deal right there. Again, it does come with the hand guards. They're not really hand guards, they're more of, you know, kind of wind deflectors. The mirrors are decent on the bike. I do wish they came out a little bit further because again, I'm kind of staring at my shoulders a little bit, but they are a nice wide mirror. They are a nice wide mirror, and they really don't vibrate at highway speeds either. You can see the narrowness. Here, let me stand behind the bike. That gives a good view right there. See the narrowness of the tank right there, and actually kind of how narrow the seat is, but you can also see that slope. The seat does have a little bit of slope, so it does kind of roll up your manhood, but that real narrow part there really kind of harkens back to that Gixxer feel and really what the bones of this bike is. And speaking of that, if you look at that swing arm, if that looks familiar to it, that reinforced swing arm right there, that is a Gixxer-based swing arm. So that is a really high quality rear swing arm that comes on this bike, that comes from the Gixxer. Again, the swing arm is what pivots in the back and allows that rear wheel to move, but allows you to transfer all that power to the rear. So that is a God's honest, heavy-duty Gixxer rear swing arm. All right, so while we're here, let's take a listen to how this bike sounds. Again, this is the K5 motor that came out of the Gixxer 1000 from a decade ago, or excuse me, from 2 decades ago. So let's crank the bike up. And again, I got a real low mount exhaust right over here, and I'm purposely doing that where I have, you know, the camera's over there. I got a microphone on my lapel. Let's throw the key in there, cycle through the screen. And again, the bike is warm. I've been riding all morning, so let's fire it up. A nice, low, idle, really no excitement, none of that stuff there. But that's a leader bike right there, guys. That's a good old-fashioned 1000cc leader bike. motor that came out of the Gixxer 1000 from 21 years ago. That motor was awesome then, and it's pretty damn awesome now.
So question number 9 is this bike competitive against the other bikes in this class? Now, there's a lot of European bikes, and there's the, you could take a Multistrada V2, you could take any of those bikes, Tiger 900, Tiger 1200, any of those bikes there. But really, the Japanese competition is what I'm going to focus on, or BMW S1000XR. That's actually a pretty good one, even though it costs significantly more than what this bike here would cost. But I'm going to focus on the Japanese competition. And the mainly would be a bike that I'm pretty familiar with, and that's the Versys 1100 SE. Now, I didn't have the Versys, but I had the Ninja 1000, which is the kind of like this bike here. The GSX-S1000GT is the Suzuki competitor to the Ninja 1000 and 1100. And then the Versys 1000 or /1100 is the direct competitor to the GSX-S1000GX, which is this bike here. Windscreen down. So I'm really familiar with that platform and how that bike is kind of integrated with its technology and everything. And the question is how does this bike compare to that bike there? And I think it compares very well. Now, the Versys, you can look at name, and is name a big deal? Well, this is kind of a complicated name. My wife kind of gives me a hard time about the names of motorcycles. It's all these letters and it's all these numbers, and this is kind of a complicated name for a motorcycle. GSX-S1000GX Plus. That's a lot to say, and I'm not going to say that all the time. I'm probably going to call it a Gixxer 1K and call it done. And that's basically what this is. So how does it compare to the Versys? So what Kawasaki did is they took their venerable 1000cc motor, which is in the Ninja 1000. I absolutely love that bike. That might be my favorite all-time motorcycle, was my Ninja 1000 SX. That was awesome. I did iron butts on it. I did track days on it. I got to high intermediate doing track days on that motorcycle, and that's 500 plus pounds. So that was an awesome bike. The Versys 1100 package, that bike loses a lot of the nimbleness that the Ninja 1000 and 1100 has. Turning that in, when they adventurized that bike, it tended to lose some of its nimbleness and its prowess. Is it still a very good platform? Oh, absolutely, 100%. Is this a better bike? Yes, I think it is. And then let's look at Yamaha. Yamaha has the Tracer 9 GT. That's another bike I have a lot of familiarity with because I own a Tracer 900 GT, which is basically the same bike, but before they went to their electronic suspension, which actually is the exact same electronic suspension that's on this bike that is on that bike, supplied by Showa. So that bike, it has, instead of doing a 4-cylinder, an inline-four, like what, come on now, shift gears. There we go. So instead of doing a inline 4-cylinder like what Suzuki and Kawasaki did, is that they went to their triple, which is their 900cc triple motor, which again is a great motor. It's the same motor that they put in the MT-09 that they put in the is what they put in the Tracer. That is a very good motor. It definitely has different riding characteristics than what an inline 4-cylinder does. Is it a more lively motor? Yeah, I would say it is. That motor is an absolute hoot, and it's an absolute peach. Does it have the smoothness and the refinement of what a liter 4-cylinder does? The answer is no. No, it does not. This engine is a much, much better touring engine than what that one is right there, okay? So let's put it like that. Is that a great motor? Yes. Again, I did track days on that bike. Now, everything went fine until I boiled the brake fluid and I lost my brakes going into turn 1 of Carolina Motorsports Park, which was not fun, and I ran off the track. So that's actually one of the few times I ever actually ran off the track. And it's a great motor, very flexible powertrain. Again, you get the torque of kind of a twin down low, and you get the high revs of a 4-cylinder up high. But does it have the smoothness and the kind of the old-fashioned refinement? How about that? Old-fashioned refinement of what a traditional liter 4-cylinder does? And the answer is no, it does not. The package is good. It's a tall bike. It's an expensive bike. I mean, these bikes have gotten really pricey, but you look at the technology that you're getting. So if I had to pick between this bike here and the Tracer GT and the Versys 1100 SE, which one I choose? And I think it's going to be this bike that I'm sitting on right here, the GSX-S1000GX Plus. So to answer question number 9, yes, I think this bike is extremely competitive against its Japanese rivals, and it offers the same technology that a lot of the European bikes do, but at a significantly lower price. So how does it compare to its European rivals? I think it compares pretty well, and I would put this bike, if not on top, pretty damn close in the whole category.
All right, so question number 10. Did Suzuki succeed in taking a modern chassis, electronics, all this, and did they successfully pair it with a older motor, and does the package work as a modern sports tourer? And after riding this bike, after commuting on this bike, sitting in traffic on this bike, highway miles, dirt road miles, kind of a little bit of everything with this motorcycle, the answer is absolutely. This package, even though it sounds like it shouldn't work, it does. And it's an incredible package. The K5 motor in this produces a very linear 150 horsepower, high 70s of torque. It is a great powertrain, and it is paired with a great chassis, an aluminum twin spar suspension or frame, Gixxer rear swing arm, modern electronics, I mean cruise control, 6-axis IMU, Brembo brakes, semi-active Showa suspension, all the different technology, 6.5-inch TFT screen, all the technology that this bike has, it all works seamlessly together. Are there a couple gripes with it? Yeah, but are there gripes with any motorcycle? The answer is also yes. So as a package, does this work in 2026? And the answer is absolutely. And it is a fantastic sports tourer. So again, the final question is would I buy this motorcycle? Absolutely, 100%. If I was in the market for a sports tour, I would start with this before I looked at any other motorcycle. So again, I got to thank the guys over at Team Charlotte Motorsports. They gave me the keys to this bike, said, hey, go ride it. You really need to go check out Team Charlotte Motorsports. If you're interested in this Suzuki right here, the GSX-S1000GX Plus, that's the best I've said that yet, or any other Suzuki models, or if you're interested in Hondas or Kawasaki's or Yamahas or even Polaris, you got to go see Team Charlotte Motorsports on Freedom Drive in Charlotte, North Carolina. They have literally about every single motorcycle you can think of in their showroom. I mean, they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of motorcycles, and they have guys and girls that they know what they're talking about. Shauna, who runs the parts department, Reggie, who runs the service department, Corey, who's sales manager. I mean, all these guys, all their salesmen and saleswomen, they know their stuff. They know their products. Now, if your thing is more European, go right next door. T's Eurocycle, literally on the same property right next door, T's Eurocycle. They carry your Moto Guzzi's and your Aprilias and your Vespas in the Euro bikes, and they have basically any used Euro motorcycle you can think of, they'll have right next door. These guys, like I said, they sell everything on 2 wheels, 4 wheels, and even no wheels, because they got a whole bunch of personal watercraft as well. So again, guys, if you see anything that you like, comment, subscribe. Subscriptions are the absolute ultimate compliment to me. So thank you guys for watching. God bless, roll tide, and remember, tomorrow needs you. Thanks, guys.